Still life painting is a modest art. The pots and pans, or the fruit and or flowers, the unassuming elements of composing a still life picture, inevitably make the painter and the art as modest as themselves. And so, in keeping with the character of real picture making, it is our aim to endeavour to present, in as simple a way as possible, the charm of still life painting and its noble development. This presentation is intended for lovers of art, conscious of the fact that art in its basic elements and components is nevertheless a high calling and still life a noble and worthy art form, and in some cases truly exquisite in every way. Emil Carlsen is just that noble and true original an artist, and the appreciation of his still life painting has grown in recent times with the development of taste and understanding of the true meaning of art. Yes, Carlsen was a true master of his craft. The technical brilliance he achieved by textural contrasts, handling of form, and the harmonic poetry of his colouring set him apart. For neither art nor its appreciation can ever stagnate or decline in its real value, even for a moment. But in a sense the pursuit of still life painting is a return, inasmuch as it reached its height in the 17th century with the Dutch painters, yet today the aesthetically cultivated person regards a fine example of nature, whether items painted on a table or window-sill, or a draped wall of antique casts, the painter delights with the same pleasure as he would a landscape or a portrait. One is forced to admit, however, that a certain amount of connoisseurship is demanded, and then the real appreciation is unveiled over every inch of canvas. Soren Emil Carlsen was born in 1848 in Copenhagen, Denmark, and he became well known for his still life works, and later in his career expanded his choice of subjects to include landscapes and seascapes. During his long career, he won many of the most important honours in America and was elected to membership in the National Academy of Design. Emil Carlsen was raised in the Danish capital of Copenhagen. He came from an artistic family. His mother also painted and encouraged him to continue his art while attending architecture classes at the Royal Academy in Copenhagen for 4 years before emigrating to the United States in 1872. Interested in painting, he studied with the Danish marine artist Laurits Holst. However, Holst decided to return to Denmark, leaving his studio to Carlsen, where he made rapid progress and was appointed the first teacher of drawing and painting at the Chicago Academy of Design. However, like many artists of the period, Carlsen sought more training and left for Paris in 1875, where he came under the influence of the French still life painter Jean-Baptiste Siméon Chardin. When he returned to the United States, he set up a studio in New York and began to paint remarkable still lifes that were well received. However, selling work was still a struggle. After several moves to Boston and to New York, he again struggled to sell his paintings. So, in 1879, he held an auction to help ease his financial situation, but ended up selling only a few paintings. This compelled him to give up his studio and take up engraving, with which he found some success, despite his frustration at not being able to paint full-time. The acceptance of a still life in the exhibition of the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts in 1883 was the first noteworthy event in his career. It has been said of his work that Carlsen has lifted his art to a height it has never reached before. This is a strong statement, but it can be well supported. Doubtless some modernists will not agree to this, but the charm of his constructions remains original, and that will remain. While Carlsen's art is obviously grounded on the Dutch painters and on Chardin, there the similarity stops, and the inventive mind of the painter begins. His compositions are challenging in the various compositional designs he sets before us. Moreover, along with that, his preoccupation over pictorial design comes the paint handling and granular textures that absolutely take over as a spectacle in itself. One could spend many hours over his works to study the careful manipulation of the globs and scrapings of pigment that define the forms of a given pot, or grouping of clouds, or the strewn leaves covering wooded landscapes, all are simply marvellous to behold. Another observer has stated, "The work done by the few independents, especially in still life, is interesting. Whatever may be their permanent influence in figure painting, they have already opened up new fields in painting, but Carlsen is as modern, as independent as anybody. With similar methods and materials, he has given a new interpretation to still life. A more difficult and a more certain accomplishment is a result of experimenting with new theories and employing new processes. We can apply to Carlsen what a good still life painting ought to be. So often the question arises with the mysteries of art. Is his art the expression of profound experiences, visions, or emotions? Are his still lifes interpretations of these experiences? Do we, the observers, share in the artist's experiences? One cannot help but feel, after studying several examples of Carlsen's still life works, that the painter experiences in his work emotions of an aesthetic character more profound than with those of the observer only, without the searching intensity that reaches a bit deeper into the thing seen, that seeks to analyze what is before the painter and describe more personally the emotion felt in the discoveries, locked in nature. One knows there is a science to every aspect of the visible world, but for the artist comes the blank white canvas that longs to interpret the forms and colourings in a personal way, with whatever tools are there to help begin the story. With any of the great masters of still life painting, from Chase and Fantin-Latour back through to the Flemish masters, objects delighted the eyes of these artists, describing every part of outward facade, their unique contrasting forms, their delicate colouring, their rich textures, and tonal unity were all possibilities for them as elements for rich design. But objects had a more mystical meaning to Carlsen. They delight his outward eye, as they do any painter, but Carlsen has an inward eye, a rational faculty for discerning all that anyone else ever saw, but more, a rhythm and music and poetry, a serenity and dignity and sublimity which makes his still life groupings classic or lasting. When gazing at a Carlsen still life, one falls into the same contemplative mood as one does over the words of Shakespeare, or sometimes one feels the mystery that unites both types of methods, with a simple use of colour on its own terms, as a third option to explore as we find with the great Sorolla. Whatever the intent of the painter, it is incumbent to remain faithful to nature as she provides the way forward. One wonders why, until one remembers that it is not necessarily the subject matter that contributes to one's mood. What leads one to contemplation before a canvas by Carlsen is the liberty of his viewpoint, which by his own methods makes us contemplate. These methods consist of broad overarching skies, a very fine balance of forms and spaces, and genuineness in his figures. What urges one to psychologic speculation before his work is due to the attitude of profound study on the part of the painter. The elusive shadows that play about the landscape and its features of rich pigment, the objects are enveloped in a soft atmospheric light that subdues their outlines and half hides their shapes, as the painter is taught of lost and found occurrences in nature. As he shows them to us, they are not literal things, lifeless or matter of fact. The artist has made a pleasing arrangement. They are forms that we cannot explain. They elude us, mystify us, ensnare us. We forget what they are, until finally we find ourselves in a speculative dream world where we would like to stay. We vaguely realize that we have experienced a new sensation of beauty, and that our appreciation for beautiful things more keenly after all. What can art do for us more than this? Can a picture by Titian or Rembrandt or Watteau do more than awaken more fully our perceptions of beauty? And as one artist has observed, what more can we ask of art? Now that we've covered Carlsen's unique qualities in still life painting, It behooves us to take a deeper look into his brilliant qualities concerning landscape. If there was such a thing as pure poetry of paint manipulation, it would certainly apply to the work of Carlsen's landscapes. Seeing many of his wooded landscapes in the flesh is a treat indeed. While he accomplishes his goal to portray nature with a certain truth, he goes well beyond that, to the lyrical tonalism that is so captivating when done well. The breathless harmonies of his work as he renders a tree or field or a dense forest with a soft running stream are astonishing. It does not take just the artist's eye to appreciate his tonal acuity, but almost anyone can feel the emotion of the scene in his performance as a great handler of paint. It has been accurately stated by artists that one must not be a slave to recording only the facts, but to find a way to personalize what is before the eye, to give it life. Some painters may use expressive brushwork, while others look to the linear elements of design that permit a certain arabesque and lyrical flow of the network of lines and spaces. But we see with Emil Carlsen the poised elegance in each stroke on the canvas. We have looked at Carlsen's work with glowing terms. It's true, but they are well justified. As time goes on, and his canvases, whether still life or landscape or indeed a figure, are shown, we are mesmerized by his ability to reach deeply, and his sincere searching out of the capabilities of beautiful design and the accompanying technical brilliance he worked diligently at. We are ever grateful, for he has left us to enjoy and consider what fine art really is. Art that moves us is why the craft of painting continues. New generations will add to the story, but the whole history of mankind to portray nature through art and search out the richness of life will remain and will be recorded in some way or fashion. We also want to mention Diners Carlsen, his son as an accomplished painter as well. His work is reminiscent of his father in many ways. Finally, we hope you enjoyed this look at Emil Carlsen. We found him an interesting figure in art and worthy of more interest. So with that, thank you, and don't forget to subscribe and add a like as it helps a lot. And we look to bring many more great painters out from the vaults of past art. So until next time, it's bye for now.